Session for April 16th, 2025 to order. The time is now 7 p.m. Item A on our study session agenda today is public comment. And my goodness, there are a number of folks in the council chambers tonight, I'm sure, just to sit back and watch their local government in action. One of the best shows in town. No, not while you're here. Awesome. Participate with your local government. Glad to have all of you here. We have a couple of sections tonight. The first, again, is public comment, and then we are going to have a public hearing for a proposed ordinance. So if you're here to talk about the proposed ordinance, the tenant protection ordinance, we just ask you to remain seated for this first part. And anyone who's here to address City Council on any other topic other than the proposed ordinance tonight, please come on up to the podium, state your name and your city of residence, and limit your comments to about 3 to 5 minutes, if you would. All right, I heard crickets. So we will move on. Item B, do we have for item B, we have approval of the agenda. Council, how are we doing with the agenda? There's one item on it. You comfortable with it? Motion to approve?
Second.
Motion by Melissa, second by Gary. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item C is public hearing and approval of an ordinance, Mount Vernon Municipal Code, Chapter 540 on rental housing, and City Attorney Kevin Rogerson is going to present this item before we open up the public hearing. Kevin.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Council. During council and standing committee meetings, council requested that the Office of the City Attorney draft a proposed ordinance that prohibits requiring as a condition of residential tenant screening that a prospective tenant must provide a social security number. Can everybody hear me now?
I think there's a volume control on the podium there, maybe, that we could, it might be behind the screen. I'm not sure.
You can also paste them if you want to. Wouldn't bother me.
You know, I'm just going to use my courtroom.
There it is. There it is.
I'm a mumbler, but I'll just use my jury projection. Thank you, members of the City Council and the Mayor. The Council and Standing Committee requested that the Office of the City Attorney draft a proposed ordinance, which is before you today. The ordinance is a single subject, and what it deals with is it would, if adopted, prohibit the requiring as a condition of residential tenant screening that a prospective tenant must provide a social security number. Similar ordinances have been adopted by a number of local jurisdictions. So before you tonight is a draft ordinance and supportive legislative record requiring landlords to accept alternative proof of financial eligibility where available if offered by a prospective tenant. If the landlord requests a social security number for verifying financial qualifications, other documentation sufficient to verify financial qualifications must also be accepted, such as portable screening reports or other proof of income. As proposed, the ordinance would not take effect until 6 months after adoption to allow time to educate and inform the public. Public notice, as directed by the committee, although not required by operation of law, was provided through publication in the Scottsdale Valley Herald. Also, consistent with the committee's direction, this item has been set to allow public comments prior to deliberation. As you'll note in the memorandum, the Office of the City Attorney has not made recommendation on the adoption of this ordinance. The question of whether to adopt tenant protection at a local level is a policy choice of the City Council. Mount Vernon, as a code city, has latitude to adopt tenant protection measures that provide additional protections that do not directly conflict with state law. Adoption of the ordinance requires a majority vote of the whole of the City Council. Under the strong mayor non-charter code city form of government in which Mount Vernon functions, the mayor does not have a tie-breaking vote for the passage of the ordinance. So you need 4 votes to adopt. 3 tie, the ordinance would fail. At this point, if there's any questions regarding the draft proposed, there was a first read at committee. This is essentially a similar draft. I'm happy to take any questions from the City Council or the Mayor.
Council member questions for Mr. Rogerson? Yeah,
And maybe this isn't for Kevin, but, included in this was the housing element of the previous comprehensive plan. I was curious, what part of that were we supposed to reference in our consideration of this?
Excellent question. Before you was the ordinance, which is the law that you would adopt. What was attached was what's called the legislative record, which is as evidence through a legislative capacity that supports the law, the harms it's trying to address, the affordable housing issues, the effects of people not having adequate housing, those impacts, all of those, which are set forth also in your recitals, supports the legislation.
Thank you, Kevin.
Other questions? Any questions, Councilmember Hudson?
No, thank you.
Because unilateral implementation of law and government does not work well without the input of the public, we are going to open this topic up for public comment. And I would invite you, if you are here, maybe you're here with a group of folks. Sometimes we get groups of 3 or 4 who all want to say the exact same thing, and they appoint a spokesperson among them. Maybe you've been practicing your address for all week and you want to deliver anyway. You're welcome to. But if you want to, just in the interest of time, we sometimes offer that option. If you want to appoint a spokesperson, if there are some smaller groups within this bigger group. But with that, would invite you to come on up and just come up to the microphone. Please state your name and your city of residence. Thank you, Steve. Just before you come up, I know we have one person from the public who wants to comment, who's joining us online. So I'm going to invite Val Mullen to please unmute and turn on your video. And if you're all ready, you can address council. Hi, Val.
Good evening. My name is Val Mullen. I live in Cedar Woolley. I am here to speak against Ordinance 3912 that would stop landlords from asking for a tenant's social security number. This ordinance is a really bad idea. Although this would apply to Mount Vernon right now, who's to say that it won't appear in Cedar Woolley or Burlington next? The rule goes too far and could cause real problems. Landlords need social security numbers to do proper background checks. These checks help them to see if someone has unpaid rent, past evictions, or a criminal record. Without this information, landlords can't be sure who they are renting to. That puts their property and other tenants at risk. Who wants to live next to a felon? The ordinance allows landlords to be able to check income, but without a social security number, it's much harder to be sure the information is real. Paperwork can be faked, and landlords need a way to verify that the information is true. Most landlords just want to keep their buildings safe and make sure tenants can pay rent. Taking away a key tool like this isn't fair to them. Please don't pass this ordinance. We need a better way to protect privacy without hurting safety or making it harder to rent responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mullen. Thanks for joining us online. Anyone else wishing to address City Council can come on up to the podium and just state your name and your city of residence. Limit your comments to about 3 to 5 minutes. It is open mic time. And feel free, maybe if you want to stand and queue, come on up. If you're waiting and want to stand in line there, we can do that as well.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Michael Barth. I'm a Mount Vernon resident. I want to say a little bit on the Tenant Act. I see a lot of things wrong with this. To mention a few, this ordinance puts landowners and landlords at risk. Portable screening reports are not required by any government agency, leading to the possibility of alteration or manipulation. Instant databases can produce inaccurate reports, leading to false information. I know several people who own properties and rent out to tenants, and every one of them at one time or another has had problems with renters and stuff. And I know one person's mother rented a house out, and they never let the landlords come in there, and after like 20 years, they moved out. And this house had a leak in it. They had to tear the whole house down and rebuild it. But this ordinance will hurt small business owners like homeowners and landlords. Social security numbers are protected by federal law. They have key information and prevent fraudulent applicants from renting homes or apartments. This can also cause unsafe neighborhoods by letting fraudulent applicants rent homes with criminal backgrounds. I urge the city council members to vote no on this ordinance. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here tonight. I also want to make sure, as we're in between here, that everyone who speaks had a chance to sign in to, there's a sign-in sheet, I think, out at the entrance. Make sure we have your name and contact info. This is designed to be one-way communication, you to us. So we don't typically answer questions from up here, but we would follow up with you if you had questions. So,
Okay,
go ahead.
thank you for this opportunity. My name's Suzanne Roner. I live in Anacortes, and I disagree with this ordinance. Under purpose and intent is the following statement. The regulations contained in this chapter balance and are tailored to the needs of the landlord, tenant, and Mount Vernon in order to ensure public health, safety, and welfare by creating a thriving rental housing market in Mount Vernon. I disagree with that statement. Landlords are being treated unfairly by this ordinance. Landlords are being told to consider only financial eligibility when renting a dwelling and are being told how that financial eligibility must be determined. Under definitions, it's item C, tenant. Tenant means any person who is entitled to occupy a dwelling unit primarily for living or dwelling purposes under a rental agreement. I don't mean to be glib, but what actually is it that makes somebody entitled? Is it someone that satisfies a certain set of requirements and therefore qualifies to occupy a dwelling? Or does a person become entitled just because? Under the Social Security section, subsection A, no landlord shall require that the Social Security number be provided. Alternate proof of financial ability such as portable screening reports or other proof of income must be accepted where available if offered by the tenant. So if nothing's available or offered, what does the landlord do? A Social Security number is vital in order to do a thorough background check, which includes financial, eviction, and criminal history. But as I mentioned earlier, this ordinance insists that landlords only concern themselves with financial eligibility. The word financial appears in this ordinance 4 times. Criminal background, 0. Eviction history, 0. If you look at subsection B, where you can request a Social Security number, but it's only for verifying financial qualifications. So what, how do you then do a thorough background check? Also, there's the other proof of income, which is an interesting concept. What exactly is that? How do you prove it? Is it a paycheck? Is it a note from your mother? What do you need to prove? And it's subject to wide interpretation. And then there's this concept of portable screening reports. I had to look that up. I had no idea what it was. Something you carry around, which it is. In the context of this ordinance, it's an alternative way for a prospective tenant to prove they're qualified without having to give a Social Security number or pay for a new screening each time. A tenant initiates and pays for a portable screening report. These reports are not standardized. This ordinance provides no guidance on what type of information the report must include. While these reports can make the rental process easier for tenants, they do come with a disadvantage for landlords. Landlords have less control over the screening process and do not get to choose the screening company and do not get to customize the criteria, such as credit score thresholds, criminal history filters, etc. There is a risk of outdated information. Reports are often valid for only 30 days, but recent income and job changes, new credit issues, or recent evictions or legal problems may not be on the report provided by the tenant. There's potential for fraud or altered documents. I also looked up RCW 5918030, which uses different terminology. Instead of portable screening reports, it uses comprehensive, reusable tenant screening report. They seem to be basically the same thing, except the comprehensive, reusable tenant screening report contains all of the following: a consumer credit report prepared by a consumer reporting agency within the last 30 days, the prospective tenant's criminal history, the prospective tenant's eviction history, an employment verification, and the prospective tenant's address and rental history.
Worried about
I
30
cannot
more seconds.
understand why that is not in this ordinance instead of that vague report that's referred to. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here tonight.
Good afternoon. My family and I reside in Mount Vernon. I am currently a paralegal with Skagit Legal Aid. I work with the Housing Justice Project, and while working with them, I also protect and give tenants their rights and ensure that they have housing stability, and also help avoid or prevent evictions happening within our community. I believe that members within our community should not experience discrimination or be denied housing due to not having a social or providing a social number. As a community, I'm pretty sure we don't want our numbers for homelessness to increase, as we have been seeing a lot of homelessness happening. There are other ways to proceed a background check and verify if a potential future tenant is approved without a Social Security. I know a lot of people are worried about felons, which is understandable, but at the same time, people should have a second chance, not just going back into the system or being incarcerated. But sometimes if they're in the streets, that's where it could lead. That's pretty much it that I have for today. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for, I missed your name, I think. We got you were from Mount Vernon. I missed your name though.
My name is Addie.
Great. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Mhm. Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. Sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Ermelinda, and like Addie, I work with Skagit Legal Aid. I am a resident here in Mount Vernon. I have lived here all my life, and and getting more familiar with Mount Vernon. As a tenant now, I used to live with my mom for mostly my whole life, but as a tenant and applying for an apartment here in Mount Vernon, just the requirement of somebody asking for my Social Security, it just kind of feels uncomfortable at the same time, because that's it's information that's very personal, I would say, and for my spouse also providing his social number also, and as a community member working with more people here in Mount Vernon, I see it being a struggle for them obtaining somewhere to live. I'm sorry, I'm just very nervous. But I do see a lot of it being a struggle. A lot of people saying, oh, it's because I currently don't have a social. How am I going to be able to find somewhere to live with my children? I am working. I am constant with everywhere, living with someone and paying them rent. I'm constant with that. And then just kind of seeing that, it makes me agree with this ordinance because I don't think anyone should get denied for housing because they need a social security. That's all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And we wouldn't have known you were nervous if you didn't say anything. You did great.
Thank you for listening to us. My name is Laura Gann, and I'm a business owner, and I live in Mount Vernon. So I'm coming from a business owner's perspective as someone who rents out their house, or someone who has a couple rentals, or someone who owns an apartment building. Like we were talking about at for the KWW, we want the ability to attract business owners. And Washington State's not really known, they're not really the easiest to, there's just a lot going on for being a business owner in Washington State. So I guess I feel that this is a tenant protection ordinance. We have those in Washington State. I've rented an apartment when I was going to school, and there was a lot of different things that I was required to do. But the landlord needs protection too. So as a business owner, I feel that this was it's not a really a good move. Not only does a landlord have a lot of issues to deal with, but with the property taxes that we're all facing, a lot of times, they have to give people rent raises, so someone has to pay the property taxes, right? And they have to, like the gentleman said, that has to redo the whole house or tear down. That's an extreme case, but there's a lot of different times when that's a problem. So if I was renting out my house, as probably a lot of you guys, I know when you do an Airbnb or anytime you do a rental, you want to know as much as you can about that person. And really, it's not like the landlord wants to know everybody's private business, except that they need protection. And I think that's one way that they can have protection. As far as inadequate housing, that we're short, I know we're short on housing. I've been to your meetings before, and I know that's a big deal. But is that really for our shoulders as business owners to shoulder that? That's a community problem. It's a statewide problem. And it's not something that I know as a private business owner that I can afford to, I can help one or two people, but I can't afford a whole apartment building full of people I don't even get their social security number for. So that's, and I wondered what the reason for the ordinance was. I didn't know why we were changing the existing thing now. I don't feel like we're getting adequate protection all around. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Stacy Sallier. I reside in Alger.
Hi, Stacy.
So I've spent over 20 years managing residential rental properties in Washington State. I'm a designated managing broker, and I've been licensed since 2004. I built my own firm, Leading Edge Property Management, that was actually located here in Mount Vernon. I've started that from the ground up and managing over 500 doors. I've served as the president of the Washington State chapter of NARPM, which is the National Association of Residential Property Managers, and also a national ambassador. And at that time, I mentored property management business owners throughout the United States. I've spoken nationally on topics like scaling operations, building systems, and ethical housing practices. I now coach and consult other property management business owners on how to scale smarter and build compliant, resident-focused businesses. In short, I've lived, led, and taught this work. I'm an expert in housing operations in Washington. So Washington state law already prohibits landlords from requiring a social security number as a condition of rental. Landlords can request a social security number but cannot deny housing if the applicant chooses not to provide it. Landlords may use alternative screening methods, including previous addresses, names, etc., and portable screening reports paid by the tenant through a third-party agency. Landlords are already compliant and can make decisions based on legitimate screening results, not the Social Security status. In over 20 years of managing thousands of homes, I've never had a single applicant denied due to not providing a Social Security number. It has never been an issue in my professional experience. The existing state regulations are working, and professionals like myself and others, and even self-managing landlords, are following those regulations. This local ordinance duplicates what's already state law, adding confusion and regulatory burden. It does not increase housing access. It simply makes the rental process more complicated for property owners and managers. What it will do is discourage investment in Mount Vernon's rental market, push landlords to neighboring cities with more consistent and balanced regulation, and a signal to investors that Mount Vernon is not a landlord-tenant-friendly city. Mount Vernon already has history of blocking or delaying new housing, such as new construction, ADUs, or simple remodels. If the city truly wants to increase access to housing, the focus should be on encouraging more supply, not layering unnecessary rules on providers. In cities like Seattle and Tacoma, similar policies have led to significant loss of rental inventory. Seattle lost over 20,000 rental units between 2017 and 2020, largely due to small landlords selling or converting properties in response to restrictive regulations. And the source for that is the Rental Housing Association of Washington and the Seattle Times reporting that in March of 2021. Tacoma saw a similar trend following local rental ordinances. Landlords left the market, reducing available rental housing. These policies were intended to protect renters, but ended up hurting the very people they were meant to help. Mount Vernon risks repeating the same mistake if it continues down this path. This ordinance sends a message that Mount Vernon is moving towards over-regulation, and many providers will start to opt out of this market. When local laws go beyond what the state already requires, it sets a precedent for future restrictions, and that's when housing providers start to reconsider where they operate. Markets don't respond to good intentions. They respond to clarity and consistency. Right now, Mount Vernon is signaling the opposite. The more restrictive and unpredictable the environments become, the fewer providers will stay. If the city of Mount Vernon wants to expand housing access, it should focus on streamlining permits, incentivizing ADUs, and encouraging housing development, not adding redundant rules that push providers out of the market. I respectfully urge you to strike this ordinance from this proposal. The state already protects renters in this area. The ordinance is unnecessary, and it will only reduce access to housing in Mount Vernon over time. Thank you.
Thanks, Stacy.
I think I went after the wrong person there. Thanks for that, Stacy. My name's Paul Woodmansey, owner of BYK Construction. I've built over 1,000 units now in Washington State, which is a major milestone for my brother and I. We're very proud of that. And we operate over 700 units today in another business that we own called Key Northwest Property Management and Real Estate. Today I'm here to express my strong opposition to the recent ordinance that repeals and replaces Chapter 5.4 regarding rental housing regulations in Mount Vernon. This ordinance, which prohibits property owners and managers from using a social security number on rental applications, poses significant challenges for landlords, property managers, and law-abiding tenants. The requirement for a social security number, or the use of it, I should say, is a standard practice in rental history, serving as a crucial tool for us to verify the identity, the creditworthiness of potential tenants. By removing this requirement or the use of it, the ordinance undermines the ability of property owners to make informed decisions based on tenants' financial history. This could lead to increased risk of non-payment and property damage, ultimately impacting the financial stability of landlords and their buildings and the quality of the rental housing in this community. There are serial abusers of landlords out there that are tenants. who take advantage of landlords who do not pull credit reports or do background checks. This would allow these same serial abusers to take advantage of all landlords and all property management companies. Moreover, this ordinance could encourage a lack of accountability among tenants. Without a social security number, it becomes difficult to track rental history and ensure that applicants have a reliable background. Our background check systems that we use now use social security numbers within the process to identify people that have committed crimes as well as financial crimes. This in turn could lead to a higher turnover rate, unpaid rent in a state that already heavily favors tenants' rights over landlords. This would increase costs as well as problems for property managers as they navigate a difficult challenge of tenant screening. Additionally, the ordinance disregards, in my opinion, the concerns of law-abiding tenants who value a safe and secure rental environment. The robust screening process is essential not only for protecting property owners, but also for ensuring the responsible tenants can feel secure in their living arrangements. A social security number for our system is a vital part of that background check process that helps us ensure we do not have applicant tenants who have outstanding arrests, past crimes, or other behaviors that are not conducive to living in a multifamily environment. I know there could be other systems that don't use a social security number, but the one that we currently have does use that. I understand the need to assist some people who have had troubles in their past, who may have made poor decisions in their past, or who have had a bad hand dealt to them in life in situations that they cannot control. But the city council should not be forcing this issue upon property owners, managers, and current tenants of the city. Tenancy should be the decision of the property owner alone. It is their livelihood and our investment. I urge the city council to reconsider this ordinance and the potential negative consequences it could have on the rental market in our community as a whole. It is essential to strike a balance that protects both the rights of tenants and the interests of property owners. Thank you for considering my perspective on this issue. Lastly, I do want to say BYK is starting to come back to Mount Vernon. We have a couple projects we're looking at, and something like this does deter us from moving forward on multifamily projects in the city of Mount Vernon. It is a problem. We, as a property management company, as well as an owner of a parcel or a building, have a lot of problems a lot of times, and even with a robust screening process. And so it's very important for us to be able to go through that process. It does not mean that if you don't have a social security number, we don't rent to you. That's not how it works. So thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for coming.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Belisa Cucci. I reside here in Mount Vernon. This evening, I'm here to present on a number of property managers, individuals that own rental properties, and certainly ourselves, my family. Of the properties that the families that I'm representing tonight, I'm going to go through a few of the ownerships here. I represent one family ownership of 240 properties here in the city of Mount Vernon, rental, single family, and multifamily. Our company, Windermere Property Management, we manage 223 homes here in Mount Vernon. Our office in Anacortes stays within the Anacortes market, so that doesn't really pertain to tonight. Our office in in Arlington manages 25 to 30 properties here in Mount Vernon. I spoke today with Kathy Piazza of the Piazza Property Management, and they have an additional 122 multifamily and single-family properties that they too manage here in Mount Vernon. That alone, in today's market, is over 530 properties that are managed. Today, we're here to discuss Ordinance 5.40.030, Social Security numbers not to be required. It currently states, no landlord shall require that any tenant, prospective tenant, occupant, or prospective occupant of rental property provide a Social Security number. Alternative proof of financial eligibility, such as portable, screen reports, and other proof of income must also be accepted where available if offered by a tenant. Now, Stacy just spoke to this a little bit, but I'm going to repeat a portion of this because I have a question for council, which I understand I won't get an answer tonight, and really for Kevin. On July 11th of 2020, the state of Washington put into place the immigration and citizen status that became a protected class under Washington state law. That law states, on behalf of immigration and citizenship status, that landlords are precluded from requiring, though you can still ask for a social security number, from prospective tenants and must accept alternatives to social security screening. There's an alternative documents that have been put together by the Rental Housing Association of Washington, which I have a copy of. It's 36 different documents that can be used in place of a social security. But my question is this, and as I was listening tonight, this came to mind. This law that was put into place on June 11th of 2020 states immigration and citizenship as a protected class. Our ordinance tonight that we're discussing is stating all tenants. And so my first approach to this was going to be, there's a law in place that protects the citizenship and the immigration status here. But are we taking it a step further when we're doing all, and if that's where it stops at the state, that's a piece that we need to look to. Are we making it more decisive and more exclusive that it's including everybody? As it states in here, the list of alternative documents includes foreign passports, citizenships, consul cards, sponsorship verification, certification of naturalization, resident card, military, school ID, and driver's license. Again, the state of Washington addressed this and put the law that landlords are precluded from acquiring social security cards. So whether it applies to merely immigration and citizenship status, or whether it applies to everybody, I'd like to get that definition defined. Eliminating social security cards makes it very difficult to check the credit risk of a tenant, which will lead to more time and money spent by owners when evictions increase. However, the elimination of social security cards will not fix our lack of affordable housing. We have no place to put tenants, affordable housing or not. Mount Vernon needs affordable housing units. We know this. We also know the council has done homework. I read through the ordinance, and you've spoken about the lack of residential housing, how it's declined to 55% in 2014. Multifamily has declined to 45% of rental properties. You've discussed how the share of rental households within Skagit County is higher in Mount Vernon. You've discussed the vacancy rates of residential houses in 22 was at less than 2%, and in 24, multifamily was 1.7%. So these statistics are all related. Construction is not keeping up with the need of our growing population. This includes construction of not only single-family residences, but multifamily units, including apartment and condominiums. Why is this? It's because land is expensive. Because we do not have enough land zoned to meet our housing needs, low land inventory for single-family and multifamily equates to higher land prices. Regulations, including zone changes, studies, permitting, off-site costs, cost of materials, costs of money, interest rates and fees, and the length of time and cost to bring a development to completion has soared astronomically.
About 30 more seconds, Belisa. About 30 more seconds.
I thought I had 5 minutes.
Yes.
I timed it several times. I had 5 minutes. I timed it several times. Okay. So anyway, something has to give. Currently, investors are beginning to talk of selling multifamily assets due to proposed new state regulations, including possibly rent control. This will not lower the value of these multifamily units and our rent because the cost of new construction far exceeds existing and these properties do not go down in value. However, it will greatly impact new development. Developers are moving to other areas due to our cost structure, and it takes time to develop a project. I ask that you strike Ordinance 5.40.30 regarding Social Security numbers. This state of Washington has it covered. It is a state law. We need to focus on other things. Let's focus on easing regulations so we can get construction costs in line and build more affordable housing and serve not only our underserved population, but all of our population. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
Forgiven.
Hello, my name is John Piazza, contractor here. I live in Mount Vernon. Sorry for my voice. I don't know what's going on. It's been like this for a few months, so I'll paddle through it. I guess I'm going to hit this with a little different approach. I'm obviously opposed to this ordinance. I'm going to hit it more from my aspect as a contractor developer here in the community. I haven't built 1,000 units like Mr. Muscles over there, BYK. But in our state, our family's done a little over 600 units between Skagit and Whatcom County. We build and own those projects. I'm currently just completing, hopefully Friday, our 66 unit on LaVenture. I bought that property. Well, me and my partner bought that property going on 6 years ago. So it took me 6 years to get through your permitting process and your fees and schedules and everything else you do, and then get to build it. I built it in 1 year. In that meantime, a year after I bought that property, we bought property in Burlington. We then, in 2.5 years, call it 3.5 years, I bought the property, designed the project, permitted it, we built it, and we're 100% occupied. And I'm still not done with 66 units in Mount Vernon. So the problem isn't social security number, it's the outreach and the overreach that you guys are looking at doing with an ordinance like this. And you guys should be focusing on speeding up your processes, reducing your fees. I can get into a couple of those things that are astronomical. Your competition is your surrounding areas, and your other municipalities around you are outdoing you. You guys are a minimum of, I don't know, we'll call it 6 to 10 years behind. So if you're continuing the process you're going, if you guys pass these ordinances or rezoning changes in the new up and coming comprehensive plan, at your rate, that can go, but we're still looking at what, 3 to 5 years before you're going to provide any housing for anybody. So I say focus on making some other changes early on now. Let's get these buildings built quicker. Affordability is kind of going out the window due to the high fees, high impact fees, things like that. Government restrictions we already have with energy codes and things like that. So we just need to be able to provide what we can as much as we can and as soon as we can, because it only gets more expensive as we move forward. So thank you.
Thanks for coming, John.
Evening, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Dale Reagan. I've lived in Mount Vernon for over 40 years. I served on that council for 16 years. Never once did we have this conversation come up. I'm 83 years old. I'd never heard the expression portable screening report. I have a little better understanding of it now, but I'm not sure I understand it. I think that there's a lot of things that your time could be better spent on with better results. And my short statement is, if you can't be helpful, be quiet.
Thanks, Dale.
Good evening. My name is Andy Dugan. I'm the Executive Director of Skagit Legal Aid. Our office is located in Mount Vernon. We employ 14 people. Last year, we provided legal assistance to 174 tenant households who call Mount Vernon home. Today, I'm speaking in strong support of the proposed ordinance. Many of the households included in the families that we serve are farm workers and mixed status families, hardworking community members who contribute to our local economy, but are often excluded from safe and stable housing due to the practice of requiring a Social Security number to submit a rental application. Unfortunately, my colleagues and I at Skagit Legal Aid know that Mount Vernon is also home to some of the most substandard and dangerous housing in Northwest Washington. This is the housing that people without Social Security numbers are often forced to accept because they are screened out of better options, and housing providers take advantage of that situation. This ordinance does not prohibit landlords from conducting criminal background checks or reviewing rental history or employment history. Full stop. In fact, practical guidance on how to conduct these standard screenings without relying on Social Security numbers is available in the materials that were provided with this proposal. I encourage other people to read it. What this proposal would do is remove a discriminatory barrier that disproportionately affects some of our most vulnerable residents. As others have stated, federal and state housing laws already prevent landlords from requiring social security numbers because the effect of discriminating against protected groups, including immigrants. When discussing national origin discrimination in housing on their website, the Washington Human Rights Commission states, and I quote, "Housing providers should be able to process applications regardless of whether potential tenant/renter has a social security number or not," end of quote. This local ordinance simply affirms and enforces these protections. This ordinance will substantially improve access to safe and affordable housing for those who need it most without placing any burden at all on landlords. Let me just share a very recent example of why this is needed. Earlier this evening, IRIS, Immigrant Relief and Immediate Support, was referenced. They called us less than 2 weeks ago because they reached out about a local family of seasonal farm workers whose landlord had been making unannounced visits to their home to demand their Social Security cards. The dad was out of work because he was injured, but they were current on rent. They never missed a payment. The landlord said that the family's failure to produce the cards would result in their immediate eviction. Again, it would be an extrajudicial eviction. Our housing advocate, Irma Linda, who you heard from earlier, responded first, contacted the family, and then that's when I contacted the landlord directly. After briefly explaining state law, the landlord stopped the demands, and allowed the individuals to show their Washington state ID cards, pay their rent, and there was no other further issue. No family should have to live in fear of eviction or immigration enforcement just to keep a roof over their heads or to even get a roof over their heads. We urge you to adopt this ordinance and stand with the families of Mount Vernon who are doing everything they can to live, work, and make our community better. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andy. Everyone wants to be the closer.
You guys are incredibly generous. I mean, I'm used to being stuck with 2 to 3 minutes, and a loud buzzer, right? Anyway, Mayor Donovan and members of the council, thanks for the opportunity to comment in support of this ordinance. I'm Christy Stewart-Stein. I live just west of Mount Vernon on Donnelly Road, but I'm here tonight speaking from my experience as a landlord. My husband and I own 2 rental units in Mount Vernon and 2 in Seattle. We have been landlords for 44 years. We have never asked a prospective tenant for a social security number because my husband worked for the federal government and we knew from the beginning that that was not permitted. In addition, we've never wanted to be responsible for the security of such sensitive information. We have had 0 difficulty in all those years in screening tenants, verifying employment and income, determining that an applicant is of good character. And we do our own screening. It takes a total of about an hour to accomplish this. And we have only once in 44 years rented to someone that we felt it was a mistake. That was very early in our career when we were still learning the ropes and still in our 30s. I also want to add something. It's true that this ordinance will help level the playing field for community members who may not have a social security number but are otherwise excellent prospective tenants. But it also provides protection for low-income seniors who rightly fear the threat of identity theft. Landlords and property management companies vary greatly in their security procedures for protecting sensitive information, and elders who are already struggling should not have to fear any risk to their limited assets when they fill out a rental application. So please vote yes, and thank you.
Thanks, Christy.
I wasn't going to say anything, but my blood pressure gets up when I'm back there listening. And my name's James Stavig. I live in Burlington, Washington, other side of the river over there. My brother and I, we had a multiplex. We were owners of a multiplex here in Mount Vernon. And my brother also had a sixplex in Mount Vernon as well. We've recently sold that to take advantage of the gains that we got, and we are owners somewhere else. But anyway, I do want to express my opposition to this. I certainly read the ordinance. I know that we're talking about affordable housing, and I wanted to just kind of share when my brother and I bought the fourplex here in Mount Vernon. The owners, what they had used as an application was basically a credit reference sheet that they had, and I think it came from some screener already. So that was kind of that we used as an application. So anyway, it was kind of interesting because it has all of that you would just fax right over for a credit report. And most of the time we got all the information right then because people already knew what we were doing. And so they would just spill their guts on what kind of issues they had as far as credit and whatnot. And I got to say, you guys would be proud of me because I think we were very good landlords. We were. We were first-time landlords to many people, and we did that for 12 years. So we were risk takers. As we've heard from some of the people here, being a landlord is risky. It's easy to get them in the door, but it's hard to get them out. And I went through 5 evictions myself that I did, doing it through Superior Court, going over, but that's the risk that I took because we took a risk with first-time people that had never done, they don't pay. Some of them didn't pay, and we get it. We were very flexible. I've heard people, landlords are not bad people, but I always used to tell people that I said, I'm taking your rents and I'm handing it right over to the bank to pay for the mortgage on this building. So I'm just passing it on down the line. And one thing is I would go to Superior Court and do the eviction process. I always thought in my head, which I never did know to this day, because if you look it up, you get a bad credit report if you don't pay your bills. I think if you get an eviction, it's supposed to be like longer on your credit report. And I always wondered, I wonder if that's on those people's report to kind of put the awareness out to the next person that's going to rent to these folks. Where I had heard someone speak, because there are some people that take advantage of nice people like myself that are going to say, hey, here are the keys to the place, and they don't do what they're supposed to do. They tear your property up, you have to fix it up, and that costs a lot of money. It's stressful. And so I think putting this extra burden on the landlords, I've been educated by some of these women today that I didn't know anything about that Social Security, that you don't have to ask for it anyway. Most of the time, I didn't fax that thing into the credit bureau because I already got the information from them. And yes, I did my own stuff and checked the rental history, some of them. But I just think this is certainly a bad idea. I would hope you guys would reconsider this thing. I read your ordinance. We're all concerned about affordable housing in this county. There is just not enough housing. And I just think if we continue to put these burdens, especially in Mount Vernon, not a good idea. I'm not going to go the full 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Stavig.
Getting kind of long, huh? My name's Rebecca Neer, and I've owned a background check company since 1995. The number one item that identifies a person and leads us to the correct information on an application is a Social Security number. But there's really no discussing it because it is now a state law that you cannot require a Social Security number. However, you can require a credit report. And to get a credit report, they have to give you a Social Security number, okay? So if you require a credit report, you can get the background check. If you don't get a credit report, you don't have to rent to them. That is one of your criteria. Regarding the portable report, to protect the citizens of Mount Vernon, we do not want this ordinance passed. Here's why. Algorithms. Have you heard of algorithms? Okay. Algorithms and unfair competition. Algorithms. Oh, by the way, I have a friend who a few years ago bought his portable report from myscreeningreport.com. He manipulated the information on it because he didn't want me to see the negative information. He sent it to me by email, and then he printed it out and brought it to me. They can be printed out no matter what the company tells you. They can be manipulated. Not a good idea. I have testified many times, and so has Lucy down in Olympia, about the portable report because they tried to make it state mandated. And they decided that the best thing to do was to leave it up to the landlord. And so every landlord, it is a state law according to the Washington State Fair Credit Reporting Act of 2012, or Fair Tenant Screening Act of 2012, that every landlord must let an applicant know whether or not they would choose to take a portable report. It's up to the landlord, but they must let the applicant know whether or not they will accept one or not. You leave it to the landlord. That's fair competitively, rather than mandating it. I've been to a few of these hearings already before city councils regarding these two issues. And a lot of landlords have come up and they've talked really good sense about all of the problems that they've had because of the piled high and deep regulations that keep getting put on them from the state and different cities. And it went in one ear and out the other, and they still pass the ordinance anyway. So it seems like there's something else behind this issue of wanting to mandate portable reports and also not wanting to ask for social security numbers. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I'll move on. The U.S. Justice Department of the United States is currently suing a software company because of algorithms, a scheme that harms millions of American renters. This is a free market, at least it's supposed to be a free market. The complaint alleges that in a free market, landlords would otherwise be competing independently to attract renters. Quote, by feeding sensitive data into a sophisticated algorithm, we're talking about a portable report here, powered by artificial intelligence, this software company found a modern way to violate a century-old law through systematic coordination. It's stifling necessary competition, and it makes harder for honest businesses to compete on the merits. This is the United States Justice Department of the country. This is a recent lawsuit. It's both civil and criminal. Then your Washington State Attorney General has recently also civil and criminal charges against the same software company and the landlord property management companies that use this software, certain ones of them. The lawsuit alleges that this software company and 9 landlords violated the state's Consumer Protection Act by stifling competition. Mandate a portable report and you're stifling competition. Common sense.
About 30 more seconds.
Quote from the House Speaker, Lori Jenkins, the fight against giant corporations using unfair algorithms across the state of Washington. Not requiring a social security number. This is already a state law. When a city passes an ordinance, it's already, a landlord-tenant law attorney told me this. When I asked him, why would a city pass a law that's already a state law? And he said, to generate revenues off of the backs of hardworking landlords. Want more housing shortages? Keep punishing landlords. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address council tonight? Come on up.
Hi, Councilman and Council ladies. I'm Lucy Fausto. I'm a resident of Mount Vernon. I'm going to keep this really short. As someone who has worked in the screening industry and has served as a property manager and has also been a tenant myself. I urge you to reconsider the proposed ordinance. While it is true that Social Security numbers are not required under fair housing guidelines, they remain a critical tool for identity verification and ensuring the accuracy of background checks. Without a Social Security number, it becomes significantly harder to distinguish between applicants and similar names, identity fraud, and accurately pull credit, eviction, and criminal history. Portable screening reports may sound convenient, but they are unregulated. As Rebecca said, they can be manipulated. They are vulnerable to tampering and often incomplete. Landlords should have the right to use trusted compliant screening methods to protect their properties and tenants and financial well-being. This ordinance removes choice. It increases liability and creates direct conflict with the Washington Fair Tenant Screening Act, which currently allows landlords to decide whether or not to accept a reusable report. I strongly oppose this ordinance as written and ask the council to protect landlords' ability to make informed, lawful leasing decisions. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy. Anyone else who was just too nervous to jump up first? All right. All right, with that, we will close the public hearing. And council, right now, I will leave it to you to ask questions of Mr. Rogerson or to propose a motion or discuss amongst yourselves.
I'll jump in. I'm fine with just closing the hearing and closing the meeting. I think there's a lot of additional information I'd like to continue to seek. So no questions tonight, but I hope we'll continue to have the conversation.
Okay.
I'd like to proceed with the vote.
Okay. So let's do this. Richard, was yours a motion to?
No,
delay
it
the vote?
wasn't. I'd
Okay.
be happy to follow Gary there.
Okay. Anyone want to?
Second?
Well, yeah,
You know the motion is.
so the motion, there's
I
just
just made a
discussion right
statement.
now.
I'd like to move towards the vote. If
Yeah.
everybody wants to do that, great. If we want to have more discussion, that's fine too.
Any questions for staff on this? Council, any comments that you want to add to the discussion? Yeah, Richard.
Just follow up. I mean, I was under the impression when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago and set the public hearing that tonight was not going to be for action, that tonight was to hear from the community and get educated. And that's still where I am. I would vote, if I had to vote tonight, I would vote to support the motion because I don't want this conversation to end. I have a lot of knowledge I still want to gain. I want to follow up with some folks. So that's where I am, Gary. I'm not trying to dodge or anything like that. I'm just still, you guys know, I'm just always asking questions and trying to learn, and I'm still in that phase. And I thought we were not going to have this vote tonight, but you guys can make any motion you want, and we all have to follow along if you do.
Yep. No, poised for action tonight, if you wish, but you can also delay if you choose to. So there's a motion to vote on this proposed ordinance?
I came in ready to listen, and I had my own concerns, especially being a landlord, which I have 3 rentals. And as I looked and did the research on it, I have my opinion on that, and a lot of it was affirmed from the public for me. So I'm ready to vote, and I don't think I really have to have more discussion about this coming from my standpoint.
I'd be happy to make a motion so it's not awkward, but I would move to approve the ordinance.
Okay, you can go with that. Motion by Andrew,
And I can vote second.
And a second by Edith. Okay, more discussion. So the motion's on the floor to approve this ordinance. It needs 4 of your votes to pass. We have Councilmember Hudson, I believe, still on Zoom. Are you there, Mary?
I am.
Good, we have all 7. So any discussion on this? Anyone have comments or questions before we call the question?
I would like to see for the community. Thank you for coming and present your concerns. I know what the fear people have about this issue in the community, but I would like to bring up something about our Latino and farm workers community we have. I give you my word. I've been working with families for so many years, for a long time, and believe me, even if these people don't have a social security for rental a house, they are the most honorable and paying in time their rent because they know how difficult it is to find a place to live and put roof above their children. Don't feel afraid to rent your units. There's families, they don't have a social security. Just with the proof of income and job security, believe me, they're going to pay your rent. They're not going to destroy your house, your property, because they know how hard it is to find a place to live. Then that's why I vote yes for this ordinance, because I am really proud to see how our family is so honorable and dignified. What do they do in this community? If we don't have a place for them to live, we are not going to have those people on the fields to work and help in the community with the economy, and you know how much productive they are. I'm giving you my word. I have seen maybe in 100 families, maybe 1 or 2 people, they might be doing something against your rules and your property.
Other comments? Other comments, council? Yeah. Melissa?
I wasn't sure if Richard was behind me. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of add on to what Gary was saying. When we started down this process, I was leaning very much one way, and through research and listening to everyone, and I do want to take a moment to say thank you for all of you to come out and speak to us from the heart and with kindness and respect.
Is your mic on?
Can you hear me now? I just wanted to say thank you for coming out and going through this process with us. But at this point, I've come full circle, and our housing shortage is an epidemic, and getting families into homes is vital. But this is part of a larger effort to solve a problem, and I am concerned about the unintended consequences of passing this ordinance would create. The city does provide traditional services, police, fire, EMS, garbage and sewer. And while this is well-intended, I just believe it's a bigger issue that needs to be addressed at the state level. And I've heard that from a lot of people, not only here tonight. And I'm not comfortable standardizing a private industry. So that's kind of where I stand.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to give everyone a chance. Anyone else before we take a vote?
I'm set.
Online, Mary? Okay.
But I would request a roll call vote.
Okay.
What do you say?
Mary, you unmuted. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry I can't be there tonight, but I am with Melissa. This is something that was brought to us early on, and we listened to the concerns of the people who presented it to us. And it sounded like this is logical. This sounds right, the right way to go. But as we've learned over the last several weeks, through emails, especially tonight, I really appreciate the people who spoke tonight, and it's very eye-opening and I'm going to go back to what Melissa said, the unintended consequences that this might bring up were what really shifted my opinion, because I was prepared to vote yes, but I have changed my mind on this, and it is really about the unintended consequences. If it's already a mandate that they cannot insist on a social security number, I'm not sure what us remandating, if that's a word, and imposing a penalty is doing any good. It's not doing any good. And we can't force people. My other worry is that people are going to get out of the rental market. That's something I've heard from more than one person, is that then I will just sell my houses and then they won't be rentals anymore. So we don't want that to happen either. So the unintended consequences are what are driving me to not be in favor of this at this point.
Thanks, Mary. We are going to do there was a call for a roll call vote, because it is going to be close. More comments? Yep.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm struggling with is the non sequitur of folks saying this is already in state and federal law, but then also saying this is, if you pass this resolution, it would be a big problem or barrier for us locally. And so that's a non sequitur to me. If it's already state law in that way, why does this make it worse? But I think the thing that's going to turn for me on what my vote will be is that there is a slightly tighter enforcement mechanism in this document than we see in other words, and that it's very difficult if someone is not following state and federal law for there to be any kind of repercussions for that. And one of the things this group did talk about was having the ability for the city to provide some recourse if there are bad actors. And, I hope there aren't many, but there is a chance that there is. And so for me, this ordinance actually helps the most vulnerable people in our community. And again, I would love to continue this discussion and find out how we avoid unintended consequences while ensuring that state and federal law is utilized. That's what I would prefer, but you all have forced the vote, and so we will follow up.
Okay. Final comments? All right.
As a rental from myself, I would never put it on the market unless I had a friend that specifically gave it to me, that the information that this is going to be a great renter for you. I wouldn't even open it up to the market. So anything that's going to put pressure on tenants or renters to that whole interaction, I'm just not for that. So I think it would hurt housing. Anyway, I'm ready to vote, so.
All right. So again, I also want to join you all in thanking our public for your input. Your input should shape legislation, and this participation is a great example of how, whether you are here in favor or against, government can work right. So thank you for being here. We're going to start with Councilmember Vanderstoep, and I'll just ask for an aye vote or a no vote.
Vanderstoep votes aye.
Vanderstoep votes aye. Councilmember Carillas.
I do vote aye.
Councilmember Carillas votes aye. Councilmember Tercero.
No.
Councilmember Tercero votes no. Councilmember Molinar.
No.
Councilmember Molinar votes no. Councilmember Beaton.
No.
Councilmember Beaton votes no. Councilmember Brocksmith.
Yes.
Councilmember Brocksmith votes yay. Councilmember Hudson, please unmute.
Oh, shoot, I lost my connection.
We can hear you.
This has never
Oh,
happened
that was a
before.
joke.
It was a joke, sorry. Trying to lighten it up. I am going to vote no.
Councilmember Hudson votes no. The motion to approve ordinance 3912 fails. Okay, and with that, we will adjourn the City of Mount Vernon City Council study session for April 16th, 2025 at 8:15 p.m.